Hello, everybody, and a warm welcome. If you are joining us today, we are here on the Recruitment CEO's Insider's Guide podcast. And my guest today is the amazing Sally Spicer. Sally, welcome.
Hello, it's so good to be here. Thanks so much for having me, Katie.
Oh, well, thank you for joining us today. So, guys, if you are tuning in to today's podcast, I am here with Sally Spicer, who is one of our tremendous coaches on our Rocket program. And Sally is here to share with us what are the three things that are holding your business back right now and what actions you can take to overcome those in the next 30 days. So, welcome, Sal. Let's dive straight in. First of all, would you mind telling everybody a little bit about what you do in your background?
Yes, thank you so much. So, and you know what? I was revisiting this recently because you always say, oh, I've worked in recruitment for 20 odd years. But I thought I actually need to get clear on what it is that I do and my journey. So 24 years ago, I started off in my recruitment career. I've never looked back. I absolutely love the industry. I have worked on a contract desk. So I started off placing temporary people, temporary kind of administrators, customer service, ran a desk of over 100 temps out. Went off and had my first child, who is 18 now, can you believe? And came back and thought, you know what, I need a bit of a break. I need to do something different. I need to kind of flex my muscles. So at that point, I walked over to the finance and accountancy desk and worked on that desk for the remainder really of my kind of recruitment career before I started thinking, do you know what, there must be something else out there for me. So I trained as a coach. So in that recruitment career, I've done everything: temp, everything up to exec level, worked on client sites, managed massive finance transformation programs of over 100 hires in 4 months, which nearly finished me off, but I absolutely loved it. Then retrained as a coach, and that is when our paths crossed. So I was just trying to work out how many years I've worked for the Centre of Excellence team now.
Yeah, do you know what? That is a great question. It must be 4 years, maybe 5. 4, would you say?
Yeah, 3 or 4 years. I did work out just before Christmas that I've coached over 100 clients through the Rocket program. So I think hopefully I can fair to say that I've seen it all. But yeah, absolutely love it and love the energy.
Brilliant. So let's dive in because you've got some beautiful, chunky, and such important subjects that we're going to share with the viewers today, with the listeners. So let's talk about that first subject. So tell us, and rather than us saying what it is, tell us some of the problems that clients might be experiencing in the first, if you like, one of the first things that could be affecting and holding their business back.
I think for me, it's lack of clarity. So it's lack of clarity on what we should be doing day to day, lack of clarity, what our future vision is. And I think when we haven't got clarity, everything feels chaotic. Everything seems unsurmountable, and we don't ever know really what that kind of first step is. And I think clarity comes in lots of different forms. It could be that we've got lack of tools, lack of systems. It could be we've got a lack of niche. And what we tend to see is lots of businesses kind of build organically, and they evolve, but they do that by taking other stuff on rather than sticking to what they set out to do in the first place. So boundaries and lines become blurred, and that creates, I just call it chaos. It creates chaos, lack of clarity, and that can sometimes really kind of paralyze any kind of future and forward motion.
Yeah. So what would be some of the symptoms, if you like, that somebody might be experiencing if they've got that lack of clarity?
I think what I like to call a busy fool. I'm pretty brutal in my coaching approach. So I'm going to say some crackers and like, oh God, that's a bit close to the bone. But it is, feeling like a busy fool. In recruitment, we are so busy. We're really busy individuals. We're busy doing this and busy doing that. And my goodness, I've got this list of jobs that I need to fill. But the symptoms really are that we're not filling as many jobs. So unless your fill ratio is well over 50%, there is something that is not right within the business. And also, I tend to find a lot of the clients that I work with say yes to everything. So they say yes. They've spent so long trying to develop this client with this relationship with the client. The client says, "Do you want this?" They say yes. They then tie themselves up in knots because they can't actually fill the job. and the boundaries, they become quite submissive in that kind of relationship. There's lots of kind of lack of control, and this is actually how we should run a recruitment business or recruitment process. They throw themselves in, find themselves candidates ghosting them, clients ghosting them, impacting their fill rate, working jobs that they shouldn't be working in the first place. And what I like to really kind of point out is, essentially, unless you're working in a retained business, which we help so many of our clients on that journey, you're essentially working for free. And it's when we kind of hold that mirror up, it's like, should we be doing this?
Yeah. And you can understand why, can't you, that people do take those roles on, because I don't know about you, but like, go back to my career in recruitment 20 years ago, one of the things that I was taught when I first started in recruitment, I can remember my boss, Barnsley, he would be saying to me, right, Katie, it's all about volume. It's all about having enough activity going on. I think they used to liken it to, I heard analogies about like sausage machines and factories, which is, we've got to get enough, sausage meat in the sausage factory, because you've got to have enough going on. Because if you've got more opportunities going on, our minds think, well, therefore we've got more chance of making more revenue. Do you know what I mean? So you can understand why people would think, well, actually, I need to have lots of opportunities going on. But actually, you're right, that doesn't necessarily work out in that way, does it? Because if you've got a lot of opportunities going on, then you're trying to focus across so many different, could be role types, it could be niches, it could be subject markets, that you become this generalist rather than this specialist.
I think sorry to interrupt. I think you're absolutely right. I think there's two different analogies I use, and I like the sausage one, because actually what I do try to create with my clients is this: we are creating a production line. Okay, we are And what I like to say is, so if you're in control, if you've got your niche, and I know that we're definitely going to talk about niche today because it's so important. If you're in control of that process, and we are building a production line that makes Rolls Royces, okay, we want everything on that production line to absolutely run like clockwork. So we've got control of the process, which is the job that it comes onto the production line. We've got someone who's, sourcing the most amazing candidates. We've got someone here who's managing that process. And so we don't have any leakage. We don't have anyone, think of like a lean manufacturing, nothing goes off, okay? And when it does, we can get in and go, right, this is where it's gone wrong. This is where the part of the process has gone wrong. We're going to, infiltrate in here and sort it out. So we spend all of our time trying to build this Rolls-Royce production line. What we don't want to do is stop that on a Wednesday afternoon because someone wants a Mini. And that's what we're doing when we're niching. I liken it to like a glass of kind of squash. You've got your squash and you want to stay as concentrated as you can. Every time you take on another task or you're distracting yourself with something else, you're adding more and more water and you're becoming more and more dilute. So it's really difficult then it's not difficult, the tools, but it's difficult then to really then come back and center on what you're trying to do in the first place, what you set out to.
So if I was a business listening to this and I was like, okay, I understand that, and maybe I think I'm in a niche, like maybe I am in a particular sector, maybe I am in, I don't know, like you say, manufacturing or engineering. What do you mean by niche? Like, is that my niche, the sector? What do you mean by niche?
No, it's not. And I think this is where it's really interesting actually, because a lot of our clients, they do come. So the first thing we do really when we start lifting the lid, and what was like lifting the bonnet on the business in the first 2 sessions we do, when they come on session 1 and say we got a niche, we're like, brilliant, okay, this is good, we've got something to work with, which normally we do. But when we start lifting the lid, we realize that there's like an umbrella term of terms of like companies that people work with, but it could be that they're recruiting lots of different skill sets. So it could be like you've got a company and you need an accountant one day, customer service person the next day, an engineer the next day. Well, if again you go back to this kind of production line analogy, your resources, the delivery team, are having to then chaotically go and try and find all these different skill sets. And so we're actually starting from scratch every single time we recruit. So I used to recruit in a geography, which is that Hampshire, which is quite big. We used to go Brighton to Bournemouth to Basingstoke. That was my patch, massive. Okay. But what would happen was I would be recruiting a financial accountant in Worthing, okay, in Brighton, right? one skill set. Then I'd be trying to find a financial controller over in Bournemouth. These candidates wouldn't be able to travel to each location, nor have they got the same skill set. So although I work in the finance and accountancy space, I was tripping myself up constantly because I was having to spin so many different plates to have all these candidates engaged just in case my clients needed them. So it was a really efficient way to recruit. I would have been much better off saying, I recruit financial directors in Hampshire, and that's all I focus on. Because I think we do so much work around the kind of psychology of selling and buying, but it's like walking into a shop and going, if you go out shopping, really you're going out there to buy a new pair of slacks to go with the check shirt that you've got at home, or you need a new pair of brown shoes to go with those 3 suits, or you need a new handbag because you're going to a wedding on Saturday. Okay, you're really specific. You don't you don't just go shopping. I mean, you could do, but you don't just go shopping. You've got to be really kind of specific about what it is you're looking for. So when you're going out there with your offering in terms of this is what I specialize in the market, you've got to make it really easy for the client to be able to go, that's what Sally does. That's what she does, not I recruit. Because when you recruit, you're not solving any problems. When, oh my goodness, my FD's just walked out or just broken their leg and they're going to be laid up for 4 weeks and I've got to get my accounts out. Who do I know who recruits FDs? Right, Sally. Okay.
Yeah. So how do so let's say I am, what are the steps that I need to take then to look at a niche? Like, how do I know what my niche would be? What would I need to do if I'm in a sector? What would be the steps I'd take?
The steps that I would take to start with would be, let's have a look at our trading history. So let's have a look at, if we've got some volume there, let's look over the last 12 months. If we're, do you know what, the last 2 years have been a bit quiet for us, let's have a look at the last 2 years. Because, we've worked with lots of clients who, I'm thinking of the lady in particular who worked in the oil and gas sector. I've got one who worked in kind of fintech at the moment. So we think I've got one who works over in the kind of Saudi and Dubai markets in construction. But when you then take that a few steps down, my first thought would be, that individual recruits construction people in the construction industry in Dubai. When you look at it down, when you start really kind of going into the detail, what's apparent is that this particular recruiter looks at head office roles, finance, HR and marketing for a very particular type of construction company that works in the Saudi and Dubai markets. So I'm not going to get too niche on it because I don't want to give too much. It's very niche within a niche. So construction's your kind of overarching. Then you've got your kind of regions. Where am I placing these people? Then you've got you work in the construction market, but what do the businesses that you work with construct? So it could be, we've got a client over in America who focuses on what they call multi-unit buildings. So what we would call like a block of apartments in the UK. So there's construction companies, that's all they do. They build these multi-unit apartments, and my client recruits project managers who look after typically 5 or 6 different sites for those businesses or those types of businesses in an area in America. So you become, what is it I really do? You've always got to kind of ask yourself like the 5, like, let's start here, then what, then what, then what? Is it the type of salary level? Is it the type of like insurance industry? So I work in insurance. Is it fintech? Is it insurance fintech? So let's just get really intentional
sort of granular. Yeah.
Really granular. Because again, it makes it easier to connect with people and it makes it easier for your clients to go, that's what I do. I identify as a fintech business. I need someone who understands that industry inside and out. And I'm looking for a software developer in that space. I know you're the recruiter that I need to engage with.
And so when you understand, like you're saying, we call it an avatar, don't we? But when you understand then the type of client that you're recruiting for, and you're talking about quite specific commonalities or characteristics of those as well, aren't you? Like behavioural sets as well. Potentially you can get that granular as well as, if you like, the demographic. How does that change things for people when it comes to their business development machine? Because right now, a lot of people are that's the focus for people, isn't it? Is have I got enough jobs on? Have I got enough clients? So how does by niching help them with that?
I think number one, it allows you to understand the viability of that market. Is there enough going on in that market for you to be able to build and develop a business? So I think that's step number one. It provides the clarity that we don't have when we start the journey. But it also enables you, if you think about, you're talking to the same types of people all the time. So let's go back to the kind of FD analogy. So let's say my target client would be CEOs or CFOs in SME manufacturing businesses. When you consistently talk to those decision makers, what you'll find is they've all got the same problems. The same things keep them up at night. Their businesses are facing the same challenges, because the economy impacts businesses in the same way. Microeconomics, macroeconomics, it impacts the businesses in the same way. And so when you've understood that and you start having these conversations, not only does it make you sound more credible, but it enables you to understand what their pain points are. And once you've understood what their pain points are, then you can really start moving away from I'm a recruiter to these are the problems that I solve.
Okay.
And that is what enables you to set yourself apart from your competitors, but also infiltrate and build better relationships with your clients.
Okay, so what we're saying here is when you get clear on your niche, you get clear on your avatar. When you get clear on your avatar, you get clear on their pain points and their desires. That then actually helps you. So it's sort of feeding what you're already saying, Sal, isn't it? Which is when you work a niche or you work like less is better, because you can work with less people, but you're more focused and more targeted. And actually, therefore, you don't need to work the same volume, but you can actually get more. You can fill more vacancies. You can be more successful because you're really honed in. It's like being that surgeon, isn't it?
It is, and it's also, for me, it's deeper than that. It's going back to this kind of efficiency, which I'm really, really big on that kind of efficiency, that how can we do things better? How can we change the process or iterate what we're doing to get a better result? What we find is so many businesses spend so much time on all these tools, LinkedIn licenses and all the rest of it, job boards, CV, like CV library. I want to, subscribe to that so I can pull candidates off all the time. They've got thousands of candidates hitting their database, random candidates hitting their database. Nothing's being done to nurture that database. So if you think about what is valuable to you as an organization, which is your IP, your intellectual property, there's so much risk attached to relying on external feeding in of candidates. No investment is put on nurturing the candidate database that they've already got. And I can, I put my house on it. There's a candidate in that database who can do the job that you're working. Again, when you're niche, you're talking to the same people all the time, you're building relationships. And so you're not having to start from scratch. There's that familiarity. People are far more likely to engage with you, respond to you, reply to you if they know that, like, and trust you. And so what I used to do in the financial services piece, so I became niche over my career, much more niche, is I used to have a candidate pool that I nurtured. And even if I wasn't recruiting, even if they weren't right for my role, I would send them little messages out like, just want to say it's been great to connect with you this year, like some nice messages, but do you know someone? Because essentially what I did is I had like eight clients in the financial services business. It sounds awful now. Someone might watch me and go, this is what you did. I just moved people around. So I had every team mapped out, every finance team in those businesses mapped out. They're big businesses. And then, so I knew. So even when this role wasn't right for that person, they could either recommend me, but I knew I had to be front of mind. So as soon as they were on the market, they would come to me first. I would then spec them out. They hadn't put their CV anywhere near a job board. They used to come to me first. I used to spec them out and get them a job. And that's how it works at its ultimate, essentially.
Yeah. Okay. So All right. So, and you've given people the steps for that. Is there anything else you wanted to add to that around that niche and systems that you think is important for people in terms of, yeah, getting clarity on that?
I think clarity is one thing that I think is holding a lot of businesses back. So I think clarity and gaining that clarity, really through the first 2 sessions, which I think when we bring people onto the Rocket program, one of the first things I say to the clients is these first 2 sessions are going to feel heavy, right? But we're here. But it is because you're doing that deep dive. Once you've got that clarity, and this is when it feels like quite overwhelming, once you've got that clarity, it's like the clouds have parted. We know what we're doing now. And I think for me, that's a really exciting part to get to clients with. And they've obviously got the support of, with the group calls and everything, but that's a really exciting part. Then we get into the sexy bit, which is the systems. We're like, right, okay, so what's currently working and what's working really, really well, and what can we double down on? Because I think we need to give ourselves a lot of credit in terms of the work that we are doing as recruiters, the businesses that we are running, the teams that we are, paying their, bills and helping them lead really fulfilling lives. There's a huge amount of responsibility and accountability the recruitment business owners that we work with take on, and I think we don't do enough to really celebrate that. So we celebrate, and work on what's working well, what can we replicate, and what systems we think we are missing to essentially allow that production line to run. And again, it goes back to these kind of key metrics. Are we filling enough jobs? Are we meeting enough decision makers? Are we able to influence them? Are we able to really efficiently fill that job because we've built really good relationships with our candidates? And so for me, those are the symptoms, and this is what we can help essentially kind of build to optimize essentially.
And so when you say systems, what do you mean by that?
So systems is a kind of attraction or conversion. So in terms of, have we got enough jobs? Do we know enough people in this market? Do we need more clarity on the types of organizations? Now we've understood how our avatar is. Have we got enough of them, or have we only got 3? Okay, so who are the main competitors, and how can we ensure we're getting in front of the right people? Because we've now got our kind of brand message. We can confidently go out to new companies and say, we help X do this. So I think number one is that kind of BD machine. And I think what a lot of clients come to us for is because they feel like they're lacking something. We're not able to turn on that BD tap and have recurring revenue, or we're not able to turn on that candidate tap and attract candidates. So for example, we work with companies, really niche, let's say vets. So the veterinary market is notoriously difficult to engage with. What we do is help set up systems to create what we'd like call nurture campaigns, just as we would do on the client side to nurture relationships. But what we typically find in the veterinary market is you can go and pick up 100 jobs. It's whether you can fill them or not. Everyone's looking. There's a real skill shortage. What we would do is turn our attentions with that type of organization to say, right, how can we adopt outreach campaigns to attract and engage with candidates? What are the candidates' pain points? What can we help them with? So it's almost kind of like switching it more towards a kind of career coaching offering. What can we help them with? So when they're ready and good to go, hey presto, we can introduce you to 100 clients and we're going to get you a job. So it's understanding, I think, through coaching, but being able to take a step back. And I think that's what coaching creates, is that space to take a step back, to critically review your business and say what is and isn't working, and then creating the steps to create the systems to get that up and running. And one system, if someone came to us and said, right, this is what my business is lacking, and we spent 6 months working on that one system, right, which sounds like a lot, the dividends that will pay time and time and time again, that was the best 6 months we could have spent together, because it then runs. And once you've then got that system, you can rinse and repeat.
So can you give us an example of that in the context of, one of the clients that you've worked with? Where that's happened, where you put one of those systems in place, whether that's business development, whether that's the conversion machine.
The one particular client was a lady who came to us who works in the legal sector, but it wasn't just legal, so she didn't recruit lawyers. She recruited lawyers that specifically focused on insolvency. So it was like a niche within a niche within a niche. There was only 50 businesses around the UK that hired these people at this level. It was senior exec. So you're talking these fees are like kind of 30, 40K. But she wanted to work part-time, single mum, wanted to work part-time. And what we helped her to do to identify where these candidates were, where they hung out, and essentially what their challenges were. So much of the time and energy before was spent trying to build relationships with clients, okay? And then, oh my goodness, I've got a job, I now need to fill it. We changed the system to say, right, how can we create a nurture campaign? What is it that these candidates need from us? What support do they need? Because they don't just want to be sent out to everyone. How can we take them through what we would call the most valuable candidate? How can we understand who they are, engage with them, and set up a system so we are registering? And in her case, she only really needed to register one of these candidates a week, set up a process. And so part of that was outsourced. So what we then did is enabled her to free up her time to be a mum and run the family. But we knew that by the time that candidate had landed, if you like, in her inbox, it was a qualified candidate that she could then take through a process. And those processes we learned through getting burnt, that if a candidate was already in process or already talking to other people, they weren't for us, because the chances are they were going to get a job. Okay, so we took them through a process of, these are the clients that we're going to recommend, going to refer you to. We've got a signed agreement to say you're not going to go and do anything. We've got this month window, and then hey presto, we took all of those that could go wrong, that could go, all the risk out the process, and essentially this amazing woman then went and placed them all. And yeah, and I think essentially what she got was freedom. So it was clarity, it was a system, and it was freedom to go and do what she wanted to do and needed to do. So yeah, that was a really real highlight for us.
Yeah, so personally, and just, not just from a financial point of view, but personally, and what was important to her in and outside of the business being family, she got, what happened in terms of the financial changes to her business?
Oh, significant, like genuinely. And I think what we see, and this is normal life, is there's a lot of anxiety around money, especially if you're owning your own business. And like you said, it's kind of feast and famine. This very, if you haven't got that recurring revenue, things can feel very, very up and down. I think number one, we talk about that optimize phase. We actually look at the tech stack they've got. Do you need all this stuff? Or actually, can we just really optimize LinkedIn Sales Nav or LinkedIn Recruiter, or actually just going into a database and using that as a source? Can we actually just create some systems around that to, so we don't get distracted and excited by the next new rec tech on the market, but actually really double down. So I think freedom. And another amazing client of ours who I worked with came to us, ran a really successful high volume caring contract business. But this poor guy wasn't sleeping, genuinely wasn't sleeping, hadn't showered, wasn't spending time with his family. And typically the situation he'd gained so many clients, but there was no process. Everything was on the client's term. I need you to invoice me in this way. I need you to send me the timesheets in this way. The rigorous checks that have to go around registering nurses and then placing nurses in the care home. It's such a high risk environment. And so what we essentially did was broke down that production line, understood what was going wrong. And what we did with that particular client said, right, we need a constant stream of nurses, qualified nurses. That's what we need, because we need to meet our clients' demands. So the first system we built was around candidate attraction, and the process, because that process takes a long time, there are certain checks, so we put SOPs in place. And then once we've got that up and running, we then turned our attention to go, right, how are we going to get control of these clients? Because they're running amok. And this is now, so you've proven yourself, you deliver high quality staff, you've never let them down, you always deliver. It's now time to tell them how we work. And then all the processes that we put around essentially managing those clients. And I mean, the feedback, it brings us to tears, the feedback we get from this guy, but life-changing, absolutely life-changing.
Yeah. And it's interesting you're talking about Paul there, because one of the one of the other parts that you touched on in that, Sal, which is so true, is that very often when people come into our world and start working with us, you know, the business is where they want to focus on, and they've got that feeling of being quite lost as a recruitment business owner, and it's very lonely when you're the only person and you're at the top and you've got nobody to bounce ideas off, and you've got no one, you know, you're in your own head, haven't you? What you know is what you know, but what you necessarily want is something different. But the problem is you don't necessarily know what you should be changing to get there. And so mindset becomes you know, a very important part in what we do, and as coaches, you know, what you do for our clients in the Rocket community, isn't it?
I think so. I think, Mark, I think it's really interesting that you touched on that, because, you know, that was the third point that I wanted to bring was, you know, lack of community. It's really interesting in the recruitment world. It's almost like from day dot, you're pitched against everyone you work with and everyone externally. You're almost kind of trained to not share your secrets and not figure out what your competitors are doing. And, you know, you can do it better. And I think that breeds a really, you know, negative mindset. And I'm not saying that everyone who comes onto that program is like that, because I mean, we coach people who are just setting up a recruitment business. But I think that mindset bit is so important. And I think probably the reason I got into coaching. So when you get into coaching, there's lots of different routes you can take. You know, you can go down the life coaching route. You know, for me, it's all around the kind of science. Is why do we do the things we do, and essentially how can we change the way we do things? How can we reprogram our brains? Which is why I went down the NLP route, because I think fundamentally I believe that we've got all the questions, we've got all the answers inside of us. We just need to create the space, which is really difficult to make that commitment. It's the space and the time bit. Okay, once you've done it, and you know, we've all got coaches ourselves. I think you have to as a coach, don't you? You have to have your own coach.
Totally.
But when you're then in that coaching session, you're like, thank goodness. You know, some of my clients come to us and say, well, I don't know what I want to talk to you about. I mean, we give quite a lot of structure, but I don't know what I want to talk to you about today. And sometimes I love those sessions the most, because I think what comes up is what's supposed to come up. And I mean, I call myself a brutal coach, and I say that, you know, affectionately, is because I go there with questions. And I think we have to, because once we can see the glimmer of there's something going on here that we probably need to work out, which is then going to be the catalyst of the change that you and your business needs, it's our role to not only hold you to account, but to create the space for you to explore that. And I think that's the magic of coaching, really.
Lovely. Okay. And so we talked about niche, we talked about systems, we talked about mindset. What would be your what's your greatest tip? Because not only do you coach in recruitment businesses, you are a recruitment business owner as well. You walk your talk. What would you be advising anyone else who's running a recruitment business right now? Where do you think? What do you think is perhaps like a something that, I don't know, a hidden area that people just aren't aware of, but actually they need to be thinking about it for the future, for the next, let's say, 6 months, that you think top agenda?
I think top agenda for the next 6 months is stop reading the blooming press, right? Stop feeding into this narrative. The market's hard, no one's recruiting, the economy's shot, the general election is causing everything. Right? I've worked in this recruitment industry for 24 years. There has never been a market, right, that suits everyone, right? There's like too many clients, too many candidates, not enough money. But the more time we spend on that energetically, okay, the more our mind is going to say, this isn't going to work. This isn't going to work. I know it's not going to work. It's called confirmation bias. I knew phoning that client and I wasn't going to get that job because the economy's, So what I would say is you have got a choice, right, in terms of your mindset. And I would choose an abundance mindset every single day. So whatever you need to do to get yourself into that frame of mind, okay, where there is an abundance of opportunities out there and you are positioned in the perfect place to go and execute those, that is what is going to get you through the next 6 months. And it's a choice. I liken it to being a crossroad. You're in a crossroad every single morning. Which way are you going to go? How do you to live your life? What kind of business do you want to have? Because the opportunity is out there. It's like 1 million jobs on the job market in the UK, like 1 million jobs, and you're telling me you can't go and find one in your niche and fill it.
Yeah. And I think you're right though, isn't it? It's about actually having the how on how to do that. Because the motivation can be there, and then it's okay, if I keep doing what I'm doing, I'm going to get the same results. So for people to know that there is another way, and I think, I would echo what you're saying about this so much. Everything is a lot of noise, whether that's what you're doing on LinkedIn, whether that's social media platforms that you could be choosing, whether that's, where do you post your adverts now, or what do you use to post your adverts, or should I be doing a TikTok, or should I be doing this, or should I be doing that? I think it's very, very confusing for people. And I think what, I'm taking away from everything that you're saying here, Sal, is there's a theme of, with the clarity, is that actually it's about doing less a lot better,
100%.
and about streamlining what you're doing. But also to do that is to really help yourself by getting underneath the bonnet of your business to see what's there, and to optimize the parts that perhaps you haven't even realized were the gold that could be getting you a lot greater return. So you're talking simple systems and tactics that actually will create more abundance, but will reduce the stress and reduce the workload. So, not listening to things that are going on in the press is about taking things out, isn't it? It's not about putting more things in. It's actually about removing things, and streamlining. What is it? We love the Ferrari quote, don't we? If you want to make a car go faster, you've got to make it a lot lighter.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's exactly that. And I think you can identify that really, really quickly. And just double down and stop getting distracted. Just JFDI it. Get on with it.
Yeah. Yes.
Because
yes.
they're skilled. These individuals are skilled recruiters. They know what they're doing. They just need to be getting in front of the right people with the right message.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's always a way, and this is the thing to know. So if you're listening to this conversation, and I hope anyone who's listening, you're going to walk away with one piece of nugget that you can take and put into action, and ask yourself, what is it that my business needs around this? Have I got clarity on my niche? What is it I need to double down on? How is my mindset supporting me? Because what we're talking about here are just simple shifts in your business that will create huge differences. As Sal said, just one of the machines, and we have 4 that we talk to our clients about, just one machine makes a massive difference. So if you want the plan if you like the model that we have on how to generate a 7-figure, over £1 million recruitment business, you can actually click on the link below this podcast, and we will show you how we help other recruitment businesses leverage more opportunities, make more placements, and we can give you the whole plan, the whole map, if you click on the button below. So Sal, thanks so much for joining us today. It's been amazing. Thank you very, very much for your time, and we will see you again soon on the podcast. Take care.
Bye.